about 2.5 for there it is in the center of the racetrack. The Adams drawing alongside again. Forever is still there. Forever he's pulling away. He's got another gear. Yeah, the quick fight come in the Derby. Wheeler White keeps coming in. Flying hot is all hot. Smarty Jones is all out. And here's the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby. And Seattle Noah that beats the Missouri Cup.
Under the Twin Spires at Churchill Downs, it is just 11 days until the 144th running of the Kentucky Derby, presented by Woodford Reserve. Arrivals, defections, additions. It's that time of year, temperature in the 50s, and the main track is sloppy. More rain at DeRosa, but the forecast looks good in the days ahead. And as I mentioned, lots going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. In the next 12 days, we'll have a lot going on the track. But the big news yesterday really was all that going on off the track. 2 horses out, 2 horses in. Should be an exciting time of year following along.
And the 4 Todd Pletcher horses arriving on the grounds. More on that in just a little bit. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Quip is out of the Derby. Combatant now in. Quip owned partially by Windstar Farm. They have other interests in the Kentucky Derby. They're going to wait for the Preakness. Gronkowski is also out. Spiked a mild fever. He will not be coming in from overseas. He was the first horse to get in based on the European road to the Kentucky Derby, and Still Regard now draws in for Jerry Hollendorfer. And Ryan Moore, he had a decision to make, and he has chosen to ride Mendelssohn in the Kentucky Derby for all-world trainer Aidan O'Brien. Ed DeRosa and I on the backstretch here at Churchill Downs, high atop the Twin Spires, or near them, by the finish line, is James Scully, third member of our team. James, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Ed. And yes, a couple defections yesterday, like you guys referenced. The first was Quip coming out. He's co-owned by Windstar, made the decision, I'm sure, a lot easier for them. They can point him to the Preakness. And his defection opened the door for Combatant, put Steve Asmussen, who was elected to the Hall of Fame in 2016, Horse of the Year gun runner last year, and has 2 seconds and 2/3, but he's still looking for that elusive first win. It's good to see him in the race with Combatant, and that Quip's defection opens a mount, or leaves Florent Giroux, a top local rider, without a mount in the Derby. Couple openings still, and we'll see if he gets him out in the days to come.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if Flo winds up on somebody, the regular rider of Gun Runner, who has certainly pushed himself in the upper echelon of riders. Combatant, Ed, he's been second and third a lot behind Magnum Moon in his last couple of races, but he's very consistent, and he will be making up ground late.
Yeah, absolutely. Runs his race. Not a lot of wins in the far right column of his PPs, but certainly in form, I would say. You're going to get an honest race out of him. And Steve Asmussen, who looked loaded for the Derby in September, October last year, went winless in all the points races. All that won't matter if he gets the roses on May 5th.
Yeah, no doubt. Doesn't matter how you get there. You got to be in the gate
That's
to
right.
win. One horse that won't be in the starting gate is Gronkowski, the European named for the New England tight end Rob Gronkowski, and Rob Gronkowski himself buying interest into the horse just days ago. Spiked a fever, Ed, but this is one of those situations where, you know, it happens. The horse spiked a fever. He's not going to make it. Gronk himself tweeting about the occasion just yesterday as well, and he had to be disappointed. James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping he'd make it over. Definitely was going to be an interesting storyline, and he was going to take a lot of wagering dollars. So as a bettor on the race, I was a little disappointed. In Still Regard, you know, I really liked him early in the year, and I don't know if he can run his best race in the Kentucky Derby coming off those 2 setbacks.
So that leaves room for In Still Regard to draw into the field. And Ed, earlier this year, this was a horse I loved, based on the fact that I was at Fairgrounds, and he won the Lecomte, and he did it very impressively over a nice field.
Yeah, after this race, I think I moved him up into my top 3 on the Derby top 10 list, and he beat Steve Asmussen horse, Principe Graham. I'm glad I don't have to say his name anymore. One of the horses Florent Giroux looked to be riding this year. And the sky seemed to be the limit. Things didn't go as well in the Risen Star. He was 4th in the Santa Anita Derby, a long way back from Bolt Dioro and Justify on top. He's going to be a long shot here, but showed some promise, sort of like Free Drop Billy. We've seen the talent, we'll see if Jerry can get him ready on May 5th.
Yeah, I mean, if you like Justify and Boldero, he was a distant fourth behind those two, but maybe if the strength is in California and still regard worth utilizing in the gimmick equation, Jerry Hollendorf for third last year with Battle of Midway. Okay, let's take a look at the new top 20 now with the two defections of Quip and Gronkowski. We've got a couple of additions. We mentioned Combatant and Instilled Regard, 32 points and 29 points respectively. And James, 4 of the top 5 trained by Todd Pletcher. They arrived on the grounds yesterday. The Derby field still could change a little bit. We've seen defections yesterday, but right now this is what we're looking at.
Yeah, and let's hope we have no more defections. Really a solid bunch. This is shaping up to be one of the best Kentucky Derbies in years, and Todd Pletcher is a good place to start. I mean, he's been in every Derby except for 2003 since 2000. That was his first year running, and he's always a major player in the prep races. He got his second win last year with Always Dreamin', and his foursome this year is as deep and as talented as it's ever been. I call it a fearsome foursome, and he's really in a prime spot to challenge for his third win.
The third headline has to do with a horse coming in from overseas. It's Mendelssohn. We've all been very impressed by him, particularly in the UAE Derby. Aidan O'Brien, 21 Grade 1 or Group 1 wins just last year. He's come over here to the United States and conquered our races on many, many occasions, Ed. And so is Ryan Moore. But the quote coming out of England, Ireland, overseas, is that Ryan Moore is fascinated by the Kentucky Derby, but he did have a choice to make.
He did. He could have ridden Guinea's favorite, Saxon Warrior, which is the first leg of their English Triple Crown, Epsom Derby being the second. But to me, this wasn't Sophie's choice. I mean, the Kentucky Derby is the Kentucky Derby, maybe on par with the Epsom Derby in June, but definitely a more prestigious race than the 2000 Guineas. Not a surprise, but still, it is news. He made the choice, and to me, it's the best trainer and best jockey in the world on Mendelssohn.
And James, your thoughts? I mean, I know you really like Mendelssohn as well, and you were really confident in this horse before Ryan Moore made his decisions. I'm not surprised by it. I'm sure you're not.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I could just look at his quotes after the race. I mean, the horse won so impressively, but it wasn't just that. I mean, he said he won with a lot left, a lot in the tank. He wouldn't be coming over here. I mean, it's still a classic race, the 2000 Guineas. If he didn't think he could win, he would not be giving up the mount in the favorite over there. So it's a real positive sign for Mendelssohn. I know we were expecting it, but you never know until they make the decision, and I was glad to see them announce that Ryan Moore will be here.
Now, Aidan O'Brien ships in and he runs. He's not going to be here till Monday of Derby week, so we're not going to get a chance to really see him after quarantine till just a couple of days before the race. Obviously, we're looking very forward to that, and obviously this horse is a major player.
Yeah, no doubt. I expect him to be second choice, and really from a value standpoint, I'd rather bet him than Justify.
All right, we'll talk more about that a little bit later on, but we got to get to the Todd Pletcher trained horses because they arrived yesterday and they are all major players on paper in the 144th running of the Kentucky Derby presented by Woodford Reserve. Let's talk first about Magnum Moon. He is first on the points list. And talking about Pletcher, this will be the 6th time he started at least 4 horses in a single Derby. 15th consecutive year he's been represented in the Derby. He's tied with Dwayne Lukas for most starters in the Derby, and he's going to blow by him this year. This is one of his top contenders, Ed, but Magnum Moon has that Apollo curse. We've talked about it. Can he break the curse? Can he be the one to do it?
No, he can since he's in the gate, but we'll see if he is. Certainly this Arkansas Derby effort that you see here would be good enough. Not only does he go gate to wire, which was a new dimension for him, he comes home quick, a little bit drifting out, as Brandon discussed yesterday, but a superlative effort, and he's certainly one of the ones to beat.
Yeah, and you never like to see a horse, Joe, like drift out like he did in the stretch. But the jockey afterward, Luis Saez, said he shied from a starting gate that was in the infield, and he was running straight at the end. And I was just real impressed by how he's finished in all 4 of his starts. He's really accelerated for home off of the turn and finished full of run under the wire. So just a horse that looks like the sky's the limit, still stepping up into a much different experience in the Kentucky Derby, but he's supremely talented.
Speaking of supremely talented, Audible certainly is that, and I know you like Audible, and
I
why
do.
not? He's been so good in his last couple of races, just attacking the ground and getting the job done, and he's got the right kind of stalking style with an expected honest pace up front in the Kentucky Derby, and I know on Brisk Speed Figures, he fits extremely well.
Yeah, until Justify popped that big number in the Santa Anita Derby, Audible was among the fastest, not only this year, but historically. His Florida Derby stacks up very well, and I'm definitely going to trust those numbers at the expected price, 10 or 12 to 1. So, yeah, I'm a Brisnet guy, but the numbers say he's plenty fast enough, showed a lot of talent in his 2 starts this year, as you mentioned. He's definitely one of the ones for me.
The only other New York bred to win the Kentucky Derby was Funnyside back in 2003. And Audible looks to be the second. Of course, Audible, the audiobook company, buying in after the Florida Derby win, they donated $15,000 to the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. So Audible, a very, very live horse. And James, how do you assess Audible's chances? I mean, tactically, he fits very well. On talent, he fits very, very well. And he fits well on experience, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I see him being more like in the mid-pack of the race and launching his rally on the far turn. And as Ed referenced, his numbers really jumped forward in those 2 races at Gulfstream. He won the Holy Bull and the Florida Derby by open lengths. Got huge not only speed ratings but late pace ratings from Brisnet. And I just think he's he's got the best kick of the 4 Pletcher horses in the field.
Yeah, last year there was some consternation about, Pletcher wins these races at Gulfstream or in Florida, can't come to Kentucky. His previous Derby winner was Super Saver, who prepped at Oaklawn. Then Always Dreaming blew that out with his Florida Derby, Kentucky Derby double. Maybe Audible does the same thing this year.
Now, I saw Johnny Velasquez there aboard Audible in the Florida Derby, but we had those jockey musical chairs where Johnny Velasquez jumped to Vino Rosso. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Javier Castellano now on Audible, but hey, you got a choice between Johnny and Javier. I think that's pretty much a coin flip.
Yeah, and that day Castellano was in Dubai for the Dubai World Cup. So, can't begrudge him for missing the Florida Derby. He was chasing those 8-figure purses in the United Arab Emirates. Gets back on board Audible. Maybe always his mount. You talk about musical chairs, though. To get back on Audible, he had to get off Bolt d'Oro.
That's right.
And Joe, he was even riding in Still Regard. So he's ridden about 4 of the horses in this year's field. Picking Audible is a good sign, and he is a 4-time Eclipse Award winning rider, one of the top riders in the game, and he's still seeking his first Kentucky Derby victory.
Well, Johnny Velasquez has been on Pletcher trained horses all year, including Noble Indy, who he rode in the Risen Star to a 3rd place finish, and then said after the race that was a lesson learning experience. They added blinkers for the Louisiana Derby presented by TwinSpires.com, and he was able to win that. Noble Indy's going to be more forwardly placed. He certainly digs in, Ed, and it's kind of one of those horses for me where I really don't know where he fits.
Yeah, it's tough. Here he is on the rail coming back on Lone Sailor to win the Louisiana Derby. One thing that, to me, if you're a believer in the Louisiana Derby, you're going to get a great price on every horse who is in there. Noble Indy's going to be 20 to 1. Lone Sailor probably around 30 to 1. My Boy Jack, who is a fast closing third, 20 or 25 to 1. So from a class standpoint, if you like the Louisiana Derby at all, you might as well use all 3 of those horses because you're going to get a great price. Noble Indy certainly going to be the lowest price or the highest price of the Pletcher runners.
Yeah, he's going to be forwardly placed, and he's going to dig in. So it's just kind of a matter of where he is early in the race and where he is late in the race because he's going to try. Okay, maybe the horse that is vaulted himself higher up into the Kentucky Derby picture amongst the Todd Pletcher 4 is Vino Rosso. Now, this is a horse earlier on in the spring that I wasn't very high on. I was there when he ran in the allowance race at Tampa, and I wasn't overly impressed. But the race in the Wood Memorial, he took a giant step forward. Vino Rosso, red wine, we'll see if he gets better with time.
We will, and it certainly has gotten better with winning a Grade 2 race when he looked beat. But to me, Todd Pletcher going to the well with this horse multiple times. He was the hot horse in his stakes performances before the Wood and disappointed taking money. Finally gets the job done in the Wood Memorial and did seem to be getting better. Here he is running away from Entice. There was an inquiry. I agree with you, though. Entice probably never winning. Maybe there was an infraction, but clearly Vino Rosso the best that day.
I will add about Vino Rosso's Wood Memorial. I mean, he did lug into Entice an upper stretch. Perhaps it was just a learning type of thing. It won't matter in the Derby, but he can't afford that kind of behavior, Joe. The talent is definitely there with the Curl and Cole. The real question is whether or not he'll be focused and mentally can get the right kind of trip in the Kentucky Derby to offer his best run.
Curlin represented by Good Magic, Vino Rosso, and Salamini. Obviously a grade A sire when it comes to the Triple Crown races. And this is a horse who tried to break the Apollo curse himself. I believe it was 2007 and ran third, but he got better with age. He became very prolific later on in his career. Breeders' Cup Classic winner. He pretty much did it all, and now he's a great sire.
Yeah, he did. He was Horse of the Year at 3 and 4, winning the Classic in 07, coming up short in 08 on synthetic at Santa Anita. But yeah, Curlin, a major presence here, trained by Steve Asmussen, who couldn't break the Apollo curse with him. He'll try with Combatant, as we mentioned earlier.
The Derby and Oaks training period is 7:30 to 7:45 Eastern time. The Derby and Oaks horses will be on the track during that period. We'll be showing you that live, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. I'm sure a few of your favorites are going to come out, including the Todd Pletcher foursome. All of those horses scheduled to come out onto the racetrack today. And if you're watching from all over the country, all over the world, we want you to participate. This is a participation show. Ask questions. We've got people from all over the world. Charles from Covington, Georgia. Carrie from Niagara Falls, New York. Gary in the Bahamas. Those are just a few of the names popping up over social media. We've got some questions coming in already. We're going to answer one of those right now before we take a short break. We've got Dwayne Lukas, an interview with him that we're going to take a look at a little bit later on in the show. Coach, Frank from Facebook, do the horses that ran in the later prep races have an advantage or disadvantage, and how long is too long of a layoff coming into the Derby? I know you and I had this discussion a few years ago with Destin, a horse I really like, but you did not like him at all because he was coming back off of a 6-week layoff. He ran a decent race in the Derby, not good enough to win, probably not a good enough horse, but what are your thoughts about the time in between the races leading up?
Yeah, that's one of those trends that has sort of fallen by the wayside through the years, and maybe the Apollo curse is next. But back in 2006, Barbaro was trying to be the first Derby winner off a 5-week layoff since Needles in 1950s or 1960s or something. So that's gone by the wayside. Now plenty of horses have 5 weeks to prep. I don't really like any more than that. So that's one of the things against the Louisiana Derby is that 6-week layoff. I definitely like that 3 to 5 weeks as a sweet spot.
All right, we've got another question coming in from social media, and please feel free to ask a question. Any question is a good question. I don't care how basic or how complicated it might be. James, I'm going to throw this one to you. Will the Kentucky Derby have also eligibles in the race, meaning if somebody scratches after the race is drawn, can an also eligible draw in?
Yes, but they have to draw in before Friday morning at entry time. They take the or scratch time. They have a scratch time Friday morning. They'll have also eligibles from the post position draw on Tuesday, and then if any horses withdraw by Friday morning, those AEs can get in. Otherwise, they're locked out.
Thanks, James. Okay, so Dwayne Lukas, 4-time Kentucky Derby winner. Tough to get him on set because he goes out with his pony every morning at the age of 82.
He's on the track.
He's on the track.
Set,
yeah, you'll see him. I mean, we did get back to his barn yesterday, and we did do an interview with him, and he's got some very, very interesting things to say, Ed, and we're going to get to that right after the break.
Looking forward to it. I wasn't back there, so this is going to be new to me.
All right, well, we'll take a look at Dwayne Lukas and what he has to say right after this.
Feel the excitement with TwinSpires.com, the official betting partner of the Kentucky Derby and Breeders' Cup. With TwinSpires.com, place legal wagers and watch live horse racing wherever you are on any device. Sign up, play, and win today. New players use promo code WIN100 on sign up to start your $100 bonus. With TwinSpires.com, you can bet the Kentucky Derby. Get the TwinSpires.com app to receive special offers and the most up-to-date information. Terms and conditions apply. Void where prohibited. Please wager responsibly.
Where the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. It's summer, the people are gay. The corn tops ripe and the fields are all in bloom, and the bird music all the day.
Today, we share the best of Kentucky. It's our Woodford way.
Welcome back to the Kentucky Derby Work Show presented by TwinSpires.com. Joe Christofak, Ed DeRosa, and James Scully on hand. Live training here this morning. We've got Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks horses going to the track in just about 10 minutes from now, highlighted by the Todd squad. His 4 horses arriving yesterday, looking very forward to their first appearance on the track. And Ed, four-time Kentucky Derby winning trainer, Wayne Lukas. The man is, he's an icon. He's a living legend. I went back to his barn yesterday. He was holding court with about 8, 10, 12 reporters, and they were all just on the edge of their seat, waiting to see what he was going to say, waiting to hear what his answers were going to be. It's one of those things during Kentucky Derby time when you go back to Wayne's barn, Bob Baffert's barn, Todd Pletcher's barn, and they've got reporters just hovering over them, asking all kinds of different questions, and Wayne obviously very, very accommodating.
Yeah, no doubt. And worth mentioning, since you have Todd's 4 horses here, that Wayne Lukas was Todd's boss at one time, and Todd the lead assistant on horses like Thunder Gulch, who won the 1995 Derby. So not only does he have a horse in this year's race, Bravazzo, but really his hands and his influence are all over Churchill Downs.
Yeah, after all those reporters kind of scattered and went away, we went back there and had a one-on-one with Hall of Fame trainer Wayne Lukas. Let's find out what he has to say about the Derby and this year's entrant, Bravazzo.
It's the one time of the year when we interact with not only the media. I love the interaction with my colleagues too, the other trainers and so forth, and how they're going about getting ready for the biggest day of their lives, and the whole big picture just is exciting.
Lukas and Stevens, it's a driving finish, winning colors by a head.
Surprised that when people told me it's 30 years, it doesn't seem that long. It just seems like, just a little while ago that we let her over there. The thing about it is you get the first one, and you maybe take a deep sigh and you say, as a trainer, I've arrived. But the fire doesn't go out. Once you even taste it or even run second or third, these guys that are training horses have been there in it, and if we got close, you want to get back, you want to get it on your resume, and that's true with me too. Winning 4 has not diminished my interest and my enthusiasm for it at all.
And they're off on the TwinSpires.com Louisiana Derby.
Everything went good up to the Louisiana Derby. I thought we were right on target, moving in the right direction to get to this point. But I don't really have an explanation for that. Gary he's not even sure if he, ducked from a horse inside that was there or whether, it was something else. But we haven't seen any indication of that since. So we've passed that and we'll go on to the next one. I like the way he's training here. He has done everything right. I think he can run 1.25 miles. I really think he's one of those. He gets into his races, and I think, I don't know if he's good enough. When you get to be 82, you get more realistic about this too. But I think that he'll keep it honest. I don't think that anybody will steal it with him in there either. It's a wonderful field of horses this year, better than we've had in years, in my opinion. Very good quality in the the whole field top to bottom. We probably are going to be one of those that is going to keep it honest. I would say the only thing that kind of nags at you a little bit of my 4 Derby winners, 2 of them are long shots. Well, I wanted to see if the Louisiana Derby deal was for real or if there was something I'm missing. So I put him in with a couple other horses and let him trail him. I wish they'd have gone a little faster. I'd like to see a little more of it. I'd like to see him lay it down a little more, although he really did from, the 3/4 pole here down to the kitchen. I thought he ran really well. But the other 2 horses didn't show the early speed, I thought, so he had to rate a little bit, but that might be okay. Usually less is better. But I liked it in the fact that he showed no signs of looking at anything. He just split those horses and went right on and finished up nice. We'll come back with a sharp one next week, and that'll do it. A number of pretty good riders out there that are still available, or at least they've called. And, of course, everybody in America that rides the races would like to ride the Derby, even if it is a long shot. They want to be part of it, as well as the trainers. I'm going to get together with Brad Kelly, the owner, Calumet, and I want him to be totally comfortable as well as I want to be with whoever we choose. My heart says I should, after all these years in association with Gary Stevens, that would be leading with my heart. I'm probably going to lead with the business sense more. I haven't made up my mind yet. I have got a good short list, though.
4 Kentucky Derby wins, 6 Preakness wins, 4 Belmont wins, all-time leading leader with 20 Breeders' Cup victories, 4-time Eclipse Award winner, 1999 Hall of Fame inductee, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for Dwayne Lukas, who has had a storied career.
Yeah, you mentioned the 4, 6, and 4 for the Triple Crown win. 6 of those came in a row, which is truly incredible to me.
Yeah, and just a huge fan of the coach. We were back there yesterday. He's 82 years old. He's tougher. He's got more vigor than people that are 20 years younger than him. It's really remarkable how hardworking. We had actually gone by there the day before at 9:30. He was already gone. Had already finished his day's work. I mean, just really, he beats the early bird every morning to the barn, and we wish him the best of luck. It's a huge factor in the Derby for decades. Of course, he hasn't won it since 1999, but he's not done trying yet.
We're going to take some social media questions now. Again, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're watching. If you're here at Churchill and you want to hand Mike, our cameraman, a question offset, we'd be glad to take it as well. Let's start with Zeke on Facebook. Which horse has the highest points that raced as a 2-year-old? We've been talking about that Apollo Curse, and Good Magic has the highest points, and this kind of is a good transition into him because hopefully we'll see him on the track again today. We saw him yesterday, look great in the flesh, but this point system, you can start earning points as a 2-year-old. He didn't have to be pushed in his 3-year-old schedule, only has had 2 races this year leading into the Kentucky Derby, and the points he had already accumulated are a big reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely come in handy. Less so for him since he won a 100-point race, but certainly a horse like Friends Fire using those 2-year-old points good enough to get him in the gate. He had been on the bubble. Defections he would have been anyway. But yeah, Good Magic won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which is worth 20 points to the winner, and he is the highest point total of those horses who have raced it too. 2 of the top 7 did not race it too, Magna Moon and Justify. So Apollo Curse certainly getting tested, and maybe it'll be the Breeders' Cup champ that takes it down. Or takes those horses down anyway.
Yeah, and we made mention yesterday about Good Magic. He's making his 3rd start off the layoff this year. He ran that race in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, his 3rd start of the year, so that's a real positive sign. Bounced back with a win last time, and he's heading in the Derby the right way, you would think, for Chad Brown.
A lot of questions in the queue about Audible, Sean from Periscope in particular, but there's a lot of questions in here about Audible and not only how good he is, but about the pedigree, because I guess the dosage isn't that great. Dosage was a big thing maybe 15, 20 years ago. I don't pay too much attention to it now. But Sean asked specifically, why so many questions about Audible? Is it just the breeding? Because he's run so well in his races.
Yeah, I'm not a big dosage guy, so on one hand, I'm going to say that doesn't bother me. On the other, I will say there are some questions about his breeding and what his sire line and dam sire line have done in 1.25 miles. So I understand that. To me, in this situation, though, you're getting the right price. If we were talking about a 5-2 favorite like Justify, maybe there's reasons to oppose. But at 10 or 12 to 1 on a horse who's looked so good, winning such important preps like the Holy Bull and Florida Derby, I'm not going to let it bother me too much. And as James mentioned earlier, the late pace ratings, he's just getting going late in a race. So to me, there's enough to like that I'm not going to let pedigree tuck me off at 10 to 1.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the Kentucky Derby, and we'll continue to bring it up. It's the first time all the horses are going the 1.25 mile distance. And for some horses, going 1 1/8, 1.25 miles, it's no big deal. But for others, it really is. And that's a little bit of the question. I mean, Into Mischief is a really good sire, but he's a little bit of a speedy sire. And if you couple him with the right dam, with the right broodmare, you might have a true distance horse. It's questionable with Audible, but he hasn't shown any distance limitations so far, so I will say that about him.
As you can see, the horses circling. It's almost time. 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time is when the Derby and Oaks horses hit the racetrack for training. We're going to have a lot of action under the Twin Spires, Churchill Downs sloppy track. It's the Tuesday before Derby week. As we move forward, we'll be back with all that action after this.
Feel the excitement with TwinSpires.com, the official betting partner of the Kentucky Derby and Breeders' Cup. With TwinSpires.com, place legal wagers and watch live horse racing wherever you are on any device. Sign up, play, and win today. New players use promo code WIN100 on sign up to start your $100 bonus. With TwinSpires.com, you can bet the Kentucky Derby. Get the TwinSpires.com app to receive special offers and the most up-to-date information. Terms and conditions apply. Void where prohibited. Please wager responsibly.
Where the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. It's summer, the people are gay. The corn tops ripe and the fields are all in bloom, and the bird music all the day.
Today, we share the best of Kentucky. It's our Woodford way.
Horses about to put their hooves onto the sloppy main track here at Churchill Downs for exclusive Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks training. Now what that means is only horses that are on the list for the Derby or the Oaks are allowed to train during this 15-minute period. The Kentucky Derby horses will have the bright yellow saddle towels. The Kentucky Oaks horses, the fillies, the 3-year-old fillies, 3-year-old colts and geldings obviously eligible for the Derby. The fillies will have the pink saddle towels, so they'll be easy to identify at least which race they're running in. They also have their names on the saddle towels, Ed, and we're expecting a lot of action, highlighted, of course, like we mentioned earlier, by the Todd Pletcher Quartet.
Yeah, we are. Yesterday, a little subdued. Was sloppy yesterday as well, but the rain was coming down pretty hard. So Dale Romans, who he had on set, said he was just going to walk his horses. A couple others didn't do as much as we thought either. So today, even though still sloppy, a little drier in the air, should see a lot more action, including, as you said, Todd's 4.
Yeah, and 3 of Todd's 4 have been in action recently with workouts where obviously Magna Moon coming out of the Arkansas Derby, yet to have that next work, which I'm very interested to see how he looks here at Churchill Downs along with the other 3. You get excited about this stuff. I mean, I was really excited to see Good Magic yesterday. Probably going to see Monomoy Girl, I would think, back on the track today. She took the day off yesterday, having worked the day before. But a lot of important Oaks and Derby horses about to set their hooves on the racetrack here at Churchill Downs. As you get a look at Dwayne Lucas's barn there, decorated to say the least.
No doubt, and I'm sure we're all excited to see Bravazzo emerge from the shed row and go to the track. You mentioned Monomoy Girl, and we talked about Florent Giroux no longer having a mount with Quip being out. He's on Monomoy Girl, one of the favorite for the Oaks, had been one of the top possibilities for an Oaks Derby double, so we'll see where he lands. And here we have Flame Away second in the Bluegrass Stakes to Good Magic for trainer Mark Casse.
You know when you are invited to a party and you don't want to be the first one to show up? Well,
Yeah.
there's Flame Away.
waiting to see who else goes on the track first.
Yeah.
He's looking. He worked on Saturday as well, so hasn't done much since. I'm sure he's looking forward to getting back out there.
Trainer Mark Casse, 0 for 5 in the Derby, ran a unlucky 4th with Classic Empire last year for owner John Oxley, who also has Flame Away, a 6-time Sovereign Award winner as Canada's top trainer. An interesting side note, his son Norman, who normally handles the string here at Churchill Downs, has now gone out on his own. So you're going to see Norm Cassie's name. We've already seen it a few times at Gulfstream Park and Keeneland as a regular name on the program here at Churchill Downs during the course of the spring meet.
Yeah, absolutely. And Good Magic's trainer, Chad Brown, just had his top assistant go out on her own as well, Cherie. So some moving and shaking in the shed rows for the trainers. Shouldn't have too big of an impact on these horses. And I know Cherie's working through Derby. But yeah, here's Flame Away. Still waiting for that first horse to show up, and maybe it'll be the filly Monomoy Girl.
There she is, and she's one of the likely favorites for the Kentucky Oaks. And in this training, Ed, and James, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. What we're looking for, we saw a very headstrong work, but a nice work from Monomoy Girl the other day. We'd like to see her relax a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see, James, with Monomoy Girl in this gallop today, exactly how spirited it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she was a little bit ranked going into it, and even in the stretch run of it, Florent had her under a heavy hold. She wanted to do more. She was moving her head a little bit. But Brad Cox talked about it on her set. She just works fast. I mean, it's hard to slow her down. And as long as she's happy, they're happy. And that was the take upon her last work. And we'll see whether or not, how relaxed and settled she is in the days to come before her final drill next weekend.
I think another Kentucky Oaks contender, My Miss Lily, who's a fan favorite. She's gray. Grays are often fan favorites. Trained by Mark Hennig, Ed. And Mark has been confirmed as our guest tomorrow morning. Looking very forward to having him on set and talking to him about My Miss Lily, who's picked up some steam from a lot of analysts as a horse that they think can make an impact in the Oaks.
Yeah, I'm one of them. You and I have a bet. We need to decide on the stakes, but I know you like the filly from Gulfstream, Coach Rocks for Dale Romans. fans. I'm on this one. I thought her Gazelle was really well. It was a mile and an eighth, just like the Kentucky Oaks. Mark Hennig, certainly no stranger to the New York circuit, but very capable of getting a big horse to the race. Missed with strike power on the Derby trail. We'll probably see him around one turn, but maybe she can make it right for him on the first Friday in May. And he's a fellow Buckeye, so his dad trained at Jack Thistledown. I'm a fan.
I'm sure you two won't talk about that during tomorrow's.
I will resist wearing a Buckeyes hat tomorrow.
Yeah, my Miss Lily, the winner of the Grade 2 Gazelle for Mark Hennig. Strength of field is a big thing in these Oaks and Derby preps, and that's what makes watching these prep races for 5 months so fun, because it's like any other sport. It's like, who's better than who? You know, whether you're in minor league baseball or college football, you try to figure out who could take that next step into the major leagues. My Miss Lily winning that Grade 2 Gazelle last time out, which I didn't think was a very strong race. We had Dale Romans on set yesterday, James. Promises fulfilled. One of his Kentucky Derby horses, along with Free Drop Billy. He also has Coach Rocks in the Kentucky Oaks. One of 4 trainers to have a horse in both. And that Derby Oaks double, or should I say Oaks Derby double, based on the chronological running of the races, is a very, very rare feat for a trainer.
Yeah, very, very rare feat. We have to go back to the 40s, 1949, to find Ben Jones. He did it for Calumet Farm. He won the Derby and the Oaks that year. Calumet Farm, of course, is all-time leading Kentucky Derby owner with 8 wins, and all-time leading Kentucky Oaks owner with 6 wins. They were dominant back in the era, and now they're coming back into prominence with Brad Kelly's direction. But yeah, it's a really, really tough feat. Baffert, Lukas, Pletcher have all been in position to do it in the last couple of decades, and none of them have been able to do it. It may happen eventually, but you know, like we said, we're still waiting to see it happen in modern times.
Well, it looks like Promise is fulfilled and Free Drop Billy are buddies. They're hanging out there. One's acting like the pony for the other at this point.
They won't be that close in the early stages of the Derby.
And there's Coach Rocks. I mean, there is the Dale Romans trio all together there. Here's Vino Rosso. This is the first of the Todd Pletcher trained horses to appear on our monitor here this morning. The other 3 should be out there as well. We talked about him adding blinkers and improving second start with the equipment in the Wood Memorial to get the job done here. And we talked about it earlier, Ed. This is a horse with some severe upside.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll hear a lot of trainers speak on the backside Derby week, but after the Wood Memorial, I loved what Todd Pletcher had to say about the horse. He owned up to some excuses about some things they tried to tinker with in Florida that didn't work out. But you definitely got the sense that he and Johnny V, who made the choice to stay on Vino Rosso, as we said earlier, really loved this horse. It all came together in the Wood Memorial. And even if you missed that race, which I did at 4-1, I didn't like him that day, you still might get 15-1 on May 5th, which is pretty rare. Usually when they win that final prep, the value's gone. But if you're a believer in what you saw at Aqueduct, you're still going to get a price here at Churchill.
All right, let's move over to Audible now.
You know I like.
Yeah, I mean, Florida Derby winner. And, you know, James, this is a horse, and I'm interested to see when he does more after today, when he has his final workout for the Derby, and Brandon Staubel will be able to comment on that when he gets back from the sales as well. How he trains, because there's been a big storyline over the course of the last several months that Audible doesn't like to train. He's kind of like Allen Iverson. Practice? Who cares?
Yeah, and it's most horses, they bring it in the mornings, they bring it in the afternoons. Audible's been a little bit of a horse that only shows up when the lights are on. He had some works, the questionable works leading into the Florida Derby that led some people to pick against him. But one thing's for certain, I mean, he has delivered in the track, and I watched his last workout. That did get good reviews at Palm Meadows, Palm Beach Downs. We'll see. We'll find out whether he works well next weekend for Pletcher, and if he does, it's a real positive sign in my eyes.
Well, one horse who has worked well in the mornings and brought it in the afternoon is undefeated Magnum Moon, who we see there to Audible's left. Magnum Moon, winner of the Arkansas Derby last out, getting a little bit of a stroll on the outside of Florida Derby winner Audible. Really emphasizes seeing these two on the track with Wood Memorial winner Vino Rosso, how strong Todd's hand really is.
Yeah, Magnum Moon and Vino Rosso are just tremendous looking horses. I mean, real athletic, big, strong. They look good on the track.
They really do. We haven't seen Noble Indy just yet, but the 3 Pletchers we have seen look really good, and this is their first day here, obviously. There's my boy Jack. This is a horse that loves getting his feet wet. I mean, you look at that race in the Southwest, he was absolutely explosive, and smaller horses usually do well on off tracks. He's kind of a smaller horse compared to some. You put him next to Magnum Moon would dwarf him. But he loves it off track. He's proven over it. This is an off track here this morning, and this is the first day we've gotten to see him for Keith DeSormo and brother Kent DeSormo, who are a formidable team, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. He arrived same day as Good Magic, a little later by van from Keeneland. Didn't go out yesterday, though. One of those that in the wet weather stayed in. But here he is out there, as you said, enjoying getting his feet wet. One thing I'm interested to ask Keith once he's here and the media scrum begins around him is if he'd do anything differently. They went in the Lexington Stakes in search of points. They wanted to be here on the May 5th. They won the race to get in. As it turns out, with defections, they didn't need the points. So it'll be interesting to see what he says about that. But my boy Jack is in, and certainly a late closer threat.
And I mean, really, just my speculation, I don't see how the Lexington did hurt him. I was really impressed by the way he turned in that late run. The race didn't come back fast, but it was visually impressive the way he overhauled the front-running runner-up. And I'll say this about the Kentucky Derby. There's so much speed in that race that I'm not sure all the speed's going to come back to him, but some of it will be coming back. And my boy Jack's definitely a candidate to be flying late.
We actually answered John on Periscope's questions about any horses loving the slop. We all agree that my boy Jack does, Jason. There you see Magnum Moon again. He's breaking off into his jog or gallop here this morning. Looks full of energy, but at the same time, not tugging on the rider. This is really... I remember when he came out onto the racetrack for the Arkansas Derby, and I had seen him before, but I'm like, this is a man. I don't care about the Apollo curse or not. This horse looks like he's grown up. I know he's a late foal, but he looks tremendous, very imposing physically, and I like what he's doing right now, Ed.
Yeah, one thing with, you talk about the Apollo curse, one mitigating factor I will say for me, as much as I don't like horses who didn't race at 2 in the Derby, is he was in training in the summer. He was at Saratoga with Todd, pointing for a race at Saratoga. Things didn't work out. They needed to reset, and he came back and debuted in January. You juxtapose that with a horse like Justify, who didn't begin his serious training until October. To me, that is a huge difference, and one of the reasons why I'm more against Justify on the wind end at his price than I would be Magnum Moon. And Justify, of course, didn't even debut until February. So even if you hate Apollo, and I'm one who's not going to bet a horse because of it, with Magnum Moon, at least he was in training his 2-year-old year. And Todd's been high on him and didn't want to push him if something was wrong, and it looks like it's paid off so far.
Yeah, I will say, I mentioned this earlier, he's a late foal, May 9th. All horses have their birthday on January 1st, but some of them may have been born in March, April, May. So in essence, these horses might be a couple of months older than some of the others, and that oftentimes does come into play. Here is the 2-year-old champion, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Good Magic. I'm going to toss it up to James. James, we saw him yesterday. He looked great. He looks good again this morning. We talked about the fact that we think he might be heading in the right direction. The Kentucky Derby, just his 3rd start this year.
Yeah, and a really easy jog, walk yesterday, doing a little bit more today for Chad Brown, galloping out there. And, Brandon Clocker talked yesterday about his last work at Keeneland, how happy he looked, how his ears were back, and he was settled and waiting for the cues from the jockey. Those are always positive signs of a horse that could be improving, and that's what his backers are hoping he'll be doing in the Kentucky Derby, is moving forward off that last race.
One thing that's interesting to me about Good Magic is he's 2nd choice now in Vegas, and a lot of line makers here think he might be 4th or 5th choice. So we'll see where the betting ultimately ends up on the champ, but I do agree he's going in the right direction. As we said when he came out on the track, another horse definitely going in the right direction. Vino Rosso, winner of the Wood Memorial after some disappointing stakes tries in Florida. Todd says they have this one figured out. He's been high on him, as is his rider Johnny V, who sticks with him.
We do have some questions coming in from social media. Keep them coming. We're going to answer those after this training session. We still got 15 minutes of the show to get to some of these social media questions, so do stand by. We have Noble Indy now. This is the first time we've had a chance to see him, the fourth of the Todd Pletcher quartet, and an interesting horse. I'm sure Todd Pletcher's phone, James, is blowing up because this horse does not have a Kentucky Derby rider that I am aware of just yet. Heck, if I was a jockey agent, and I certainly am not a jockey, I wouldn't mind the mount.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Todd Pletcher has 4 horses. We've talked about 3 serious win contenders in Magnum Moon, Vino Rosso, and Audible, but Noble Indy is no slouch. He's only raced 4 times. He's won 3 of those 4 starts. He could be any type going forward, and really a promising type still, and definitely would be a plum of a mount, better than Bravazzo in my mind.
Here we see Flame Away on the track, runner-up to Good Magic, who we saw a little bit ago. And to me, talking about Noble Indian Louisiana Derby, we've talked about Florida Derby, Wood Memorial. Flame Away was in that bluegrass. One real interesting thing to me, Joe, about handicapping this year's Derby is if you think one of those preps is truly a key race and better than the rest, you're going to get some good prices on the horses underneath in those races. Flame Away might be one of them if you believe the bluegrass form.
Well, this is a great opportunity to take another question here because it applies to what you're talking about. Ben on Periscope asking, what do you expect the pace to be? You just kind of alluded to what you thought the pace scenario might be with Flame Away a part of it. Ed, who else do you think will be in the mix early on?
Well, we know Promises Fulfilled, certainly in the mix from the word go. From there, it's a matter of what Justify, Flame Away, Magnum Moon, and Mendelssohn all do. Those are 4 serious contenders, 3 really serious contenders who are going to be tracking that pace. It's a matter of when they push the button. But here we see Promises Fulfilled dancing a little bit on the outside rail. To me, the pace question starts with him. And even if you don't love Promises Fulfilled from a win standpoint and you're not interested in betting him, you want to see how he's training going up to the race, because if he's in good form, you know he's going to the lead and your race develops from there.
And I'll add about the pace scenario. Noble Indy is a little bit of an X factor. His first 3 races, he didn't run in blinkers. And when Todd Pletcher added the blinkers for the Twin Spires Louisiana Derby, I thought that really sharpened his speed. It looks like they're going to keep the blinkers on for the Kentucky Derby. And if that's the case, I mean, he could just be sent from the starting gate and perhaps helping to set up his stablemate's run from just off the speed.
And that stablemate, of course, being Free Drop Billy. We got a chance to see both of these horses with major moves just a couple of days ago. And both of them look pretty good. I mean, I really like the way Free Drop Billy worked. He galloped an entire mile before he worked out, but did look good in doing so. Free Drop Billy and Promises Fulfilled, the duo for Dale Romans. We sat on set with Dale yesterday, Ed, and he made no bones about it. He's been telling everybody, Dale's usually pretty honest about these things. If you want to try me on the lead, you're probably going to pay the price.
You are. I mean, we saw that in the Florida Derby with Promises Fulfilled going out and Strike Power trying to go with him, and neither was there at the end. Strike Power turning back. Promises Fulfilled going to give it another go. And I don't blame him. I mean, if he gets out there and it's a 48.5, which would shock me, but stranger things have happened, and then maybe he gets brave. So I don't mind the shot. I thought the Fountain of Youth was a fine effort. He beat Good Magic that day. So to me, he's in here, and even if you don't like him, you know he's going to affect the race.
Yeah, Dale Romans, the all-time leading trainer at Churchill Downs, which is an amazing feat. He did it last November, passing one of his friends, mentors, in Bill Mott. So congratulations to Dale on that just amazing achievement, and obviously lots of wins here at Churchill Downs in his future. Promise was fulfilled, and Free Drop Billy. Free Drop Billy, third consecutive run in the Kentucky Derby for their ownership group of Albaugh Family Stables. The horse was named for Dennis Albaugh, who is the owner of Albaugh Family Stables. His golf buddy, Bill Collins, who apparently doesn't have a very good golf game, and Promises Fulfilled, his owner, Robert Barron, who's had a lot of horses with Dale Romans over the years, he named his horse Promises Fulfilled for 3 reasons. A promise to his wife when they were married for 44 years at the beginning during their vows, promise to educate his kids, and that Dale Romans promised him he would have a good horse someday, and he certainly does in Promises Fulfilled. Kind of cool to see how these horses get their names. Flame Away, he was the first one on the track, and he looks like he just kind of wants to hang around a little longer.
Yeah, first Derby horse anyway, and we never saw what Monomoy Girl did. She was on the track too. Maybe James saw what she did and could give us some perspective on one of the Oaks favorites. But Flame Away, going back to the Cassie barn, bath photos await.
Lots of bath photos you will see from everywhere. Social media will be loaded with bath photos, especially on a sloppy, muddy type day like
gotta get
today.
them clean for breakfast time.
All right, as you can see, Churchill Downs, we're going to have a break in the action here after the Derby and Oaks training, which has now been completed. We saw a lot of good stuff today, highlighted by the Todd Pletcher Quartet, also the reemergence of good magic on the racetrack, the first opportunity to get a look at My Boy Jack as well. Muddy conditions here today. The call the track sloppy. It's obviously in the process of drying out at this point, but as the forecast looking forward to the next several days looks sunny, looks like it'll be an opportunity for a dry fast track, and we're going to see more and more activity as the days move forward here.
Absolutely, as more horses arrive, and of course those final works this weekend, and the weather does look good. Opening night racing Saturday, April 28th, but I would expect many works that morning and Sunday morning with dry conditions.
Well, James, not a lot of activity on the racetrack as far as serious workouts go today, but seeing the Todd Pletcher Quartet, your thoughts on maybe who looked best to you and any other observations from high atop Churchill?
Well, I definitely like the way Vino Rosso looked. I mean, that was my first chance getting to see him in the flesh and just looked terrific. Magnum Moon, real, long, scopy, looks like a real route horse, looked good out there. Audible isn't that big, but I guess, he's athletic. He's smaller than his stablemates, it looked like to me. I did like the way Flame Away came down through the stretch. He's one of these Scat Daddies, and we'll talk more about Scat Daddy he's got Justify and others in the field. But, really, he's a good-looking horse, and he had a good work the other day, and I know the connections really like that. Monomoy Girl looked just fine, wasn't too anxious in my eyes, and Good Magic continued to make a good impression.
Todd Pletcher Quartet, James most impressed with Vino Rosso. I would have to agree, although I thought Magnum Moon, he just looks good all the time. An imposing specimen on the racetrack. Ed, your thoughts about what you saw this morning?
Yeah, you took my word. I was thinking Magnum Moon looked imposing, and he does. Now, I will say this, and when we talked about how good he's looked, he's won his races, he's done everything right. The negative for me is he hasn't been all that fast. There's definitely faster horses in this race, including the horse he came on the track with, Audible, in the Florida Derby. I thought all of Todd's looked good, as they usually do. He learned from the best. He learned from D. Wayne Lukas. But these 4 are truly give Todd a big shot, not only at the win, but maybe at an all-time historic great Derby performance.
Now, if you're looking for great information and great past performances on these horses, look no further than Brissnot.com, and we have a question specific to those who understand Briss, and I'm sure James and Ed can explain exactly where this question is coming from and the significance of it, and it has to do with a Todd Pletcher trainee. James, we'll start with you here. Noble Indy got a lower Briss late pace number than Lone Sailor and My Boy Jack, despite coming home faster. A, is that true? And if it is, why is that?
Well, the late pace number was timed from probably the three-quarter point on the turn. His final furlong might have been faster, but his overall finish, those horses were making their moves on the far turn, were really cornering fast there. So that's why their number came back bigger. I will say this about that race. I was a little disappointed that he didn't settle in the early stages because there was like a no-hope long shot setting the pace. I would have liked to have seen him a little bit more relaxed, but it was still really a gutsy performance to come back, and I'm not going to take anything away from that lower late pace rating.
Okay, well, we have another question in regards to the crowd here at Churchill Downs, which will probably be 160, 170,000 people.
A lot more than we're seeing now.
Yeah, just wait for a couple more days. This backstretch will be loaded with people.
Yes.
None of these horses have faced anything like this before. So the question that comes from Lisa on Facebook, how do trainers prepare their horses for this mass crowd?
That's a good question. We'll have to ask Mark Hennig tomorrow. I actually don't know what the actual preparation, if that's on their mind. I will say Magna Moon has probably faced the most of it. That crowd at Oaklawn, 60,000, a smaller facility. The one thing you'll hear jockeys talk about is that wall of sound turning for home. To me, that probably is the biggest shock. I mean, you can't possibly prepare for it. There's nothing like it in the world except turning for home on Derby Day. So it would be interesting to hear what trainers say. That's a great question.
Well, they do school the horses in the paddock, so they at least try to get them used to the environment. You cannot get a horse. What are you going to do? It's like when you're staging a movie. You can't stage 170,000 people. No. The trainers themselves don't know how the horses are going to react to that kind of crowd, that kind of environment. They do school them in the paddock, meaning they'll bring them to the paddock at Churchill Downs, show them around so they get acclimated to their surroundings. They're getting acclimated to Louisville. They're getting acclimated to the barn area. They're getting acclimated to the track right now, but schooling will be a big part of it as well.
I'm sure the trainers would tell you they probably need some schooling. I mean, the nerves on Derby Day, I mean, just as a better and lover of the sport when they go in the gate, I can't imagine what it's like as a trainer leading a horse over, as an owner waiting for that race to start.
Yeah, nothing like the walkover from the barn area to the paddock here at Churchill Downs. You get a good look here at the paddock. This is the paddock at Churchill. You'll see those stalls over to the right. And what trainers will do is they will put those horses in the stalls. They'll get them used to being in the stall, as you see a couple schoolers coming out of the starting gate there, right on cue. So that's a lot of the process, just getting them used to their surroundings, which is all part of the education of a thoroughbred. Okay,
and there is some benefit with Derby getting as big as it is. They can school in an environment with 40 or 50,000 people, but I mean, there's nothing like Derby.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's take a look at another question here from Natasha on Facebook. Are there any jockeys also working their horses? And what Natasha means, when we see all these horses right behind us, are those the actual jockeys that are aboard those horses? We're going to throw this to James because James is looking down on them. I know, James, for the serious workouts, a lot of times the jockeys will be aboard, but there are also exercise riders who are employed to take advantage of what's happening in the mornings.
Yes, definitely. And like on a morning like this, it pretty much is going to be all exercise riders up there. Some trainers will mix it up and always try to use jockeys, even if it's not their regular rider, like in their timed workouts. But it depends on the trainer. I mean, some trainers never will use a jockey in the morning workouts and then just put them up in the afternoon. So it's a little bit of a preference of the trainer. I'm sure they make that decision as well based on the individual horse.
All right, we've got a question from David on Facebook, and I think David's looking for a stalker to win this year's Kentucky Derby because he asked which 3 or 4 colts could relax, sit back in 15th or 16th position in the race, start picking up horses on the far turn and make a serious impact. So I think what David's asking is, what horses are going to get that all-important first run when the speed horses start to tire?
Well, first run, I would think they'll be a little closer than 15th or 16th.
Right, exactly.
But, I mean, Bolt d'Oro comes to mind, certainly. Never really got at all in a threatening position on Justify in the Santa Anita Derby. But with a little more pressure up top, that trip Bolt d'Oro had where I thought he did relax. I mean, he didn't try to chase Justify or anything. That type of trip, I think, could be the one that wins if the speed comes immediately back. I expect him to get first run. Audible, I think, will be right behind him, so that makes it interesting. So there are definitely some good trips if the speed holds, and Promises Fulfilled figures to hold that or make that speed try to hold.
All right, we've got another question here from Robert on Twitter. James, I'm going to throw this one to you first, and then I want Ed's opinion as well because I know he really likes the horse, and it's in regards to Hofburg. Hofburg last time out was second behind Audible, one of the more inexperienced horses in the race, and Robert on Twitter wants to know, what do you make of Hofburg's preps coming into the Derby, James?
Well, my take on Hofburg is that he only has 3 career starts, so that is a little bit of a concern. He did run it 2, so he's not an unraced 2-year-old, but unlike a horse like Justify, who also has 3 races, Justify has good tactical speed, can put himself in a good position. Hofburg's going to have to be dealing with traffic, negotiating his way through traffic. That's where the foundation aspect comes into play in my mind. So I'm a little bit against Hofburg, but I won't be surprised if he is running fast at the end.
Well, I like that he has Irad Ortiz up. So, yeah, there is going to be traffic, and that is a concern. But this is a jockey who's definitely not afraid to duck in, go between horses, etc. So I like that. And the other thing, as I said before, I feel like the Florida Derby is a potential key race. I like Audible best of the whole group. So the runner-up at 2-3 times the price intrigues me. So I'm on Hofberg. Last thing I'll say on him, reminds me a little bit of showing up from the '06 Derby. Raced at 2. Needed a big prep race to get in. He did. Ran okay in the Derby. No match for his stablemate Barbaro, but some things to like for Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott.
One more question, and if you didn't get yours answered today, there's several more days in order to ask them, so don't get discouraged. Sophie from Facebook, and this wouldn't be a Derby work show without a question about Mendelssohn. Do you think that Mendelssohn hasn't, the fact that he hasn't shipped yet will hurt his Kentucky Derby chances? What is the best amount of time for an international horse to be here? I'm going to send this one to James first. James, Aidan O'Brien wins with horses right off the plane all the time. So I think Mendelssohn can do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be worried if they changed the routine, but they ship in at the last possible moment. Not a concern at all surrounding Mendelssohn in my eyes.
And, yeah, Mendelssohn, to me, I don't mind it. Aidan O'Brien's won in Australia. He can win in Louisville.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for the Kentucky Derby Work Show for today. And final thoughts from everybody real quick of what you're looking forward to tomorrow. I'm looking forward to this track being fast, Ed.
Yeah, dry weather will be nice. Seeing Todd on the track, or Todd's 4 horses on the track was a treat today. More of that tomorrow. Things are ramping up.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm looking forward to the weather improving and more action. I mean, it's great to see these good horses arrive. We'll have more trickling in the days to come.
And yes, Todd will be here. He's already here. So maybe you're going to see him maybe not on the track, but just outside the track. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. The Kentucky Derby Work Show presented by TwinSpires.com.